If you're interested in creating renderings from Revit, it all starts with a well-composed 3D view. 3D views come in two varieties, orthographic and perspective. Each naturally shares some similarities, but they also have some differences as well. In this movie, we will create each kind of view and look at the various settings and features. It doesn't really matter which view we start in because we're going to be creating new 3D views here. Let's start with the orthographic view. Orthographic view is pretty simple to create. You just simply use the default 3D view button up on the quick access toolbar, and it will do one of two things. It will either open up an existing 3D view that you already have. Let me show it to you here on the project browser. Scroll down. You can see the name has the letters 3D, but it's got the little curly brackets around it. So that's the default name that Revit uses for the default 3D view. If you're in a work sharing project, it'll actually add your username inside the brackets there. Now, in my case, it came up shaded because I already had this 3D view. So what I'm going to do is delete it and create it again. Now, again, I'm using the quick access toolbar button right here. You can also go to the View tab and locate it right there. So it's just a matter of preference, the same command. Now, notice when I loaded it the second time, because the default 3D view didn't exist, then Revit actually just created a new one from scratch. The new one from scratch is always oriented this way from sort of the southeast orientation, and it's always in a hidden line visual style. So if you want to make it shaded, you could turn on the shading, and you can, of course, zoom it and rotate it if you want to. And it's just an orthographic 3D view. Whatever you do to this view, it will remember the next time. So if I spin it around here like so, and I close the view, and then I just go click the button again, it remembers what I did the last time because it's saved in that default 3D view. So it's only going to create that fresh one if you either rename or delete this one. So if you want to preserve your axonometric view, you might want to just rename it. You can see I have a few different rename versions here in the file. For example, this one, aerial view axonometric. I put axon in parentheses there. And this is a version of the 3D view that's been saved that way. Now the perspective views or camera views go by both names there. Let me start back in my first floor plan. Perspective views can be generated from the drop-down that's associated with the 3D view button, and we're going to use the camera button. Now you can find that drop-down on the main button on the View tab. You can also find it here on the Quick Access toolbar. It's the same button in both places. I'll choose the camera, and I get a little camera icon on my cursor. Over here on the options bar is the height. This is basically my eye level. So if you're an average height person, then 5'6" is probably a pretty decent height. You click where you want to stand. Let me zoom this view out just a little bit. We'll kind of get a 3D vantage point of the entire building. And I'm going to stand over here. And you just drag the mouse where you want to look. So I'm going to drag past the building. It makes this cone. And when you click, it will create the view and immediately open it in its own window. So creating the camera view is just as easy as creating the default 3D view. Default 3D view is a single click, camera view is 2 clicks. And in both cases, you are immediately looking at your project there in 3D. So in the next movie, we'll look at some of the other settings and features of these various views, but creating them, as you can see, is a pretty simple and straightforward process.